Namaste, my friends. Welcome to episode number 17 of Jack Colley's Black Book. Today is July 21 of 2024. I've been interested in and kind of analyzing, thinking about, chewing on, I like that phrase, this idea of when did things start to not necessarily go wrong. A lot of times we think of sin as something that goes wrong, but at what point was something, was there a necessity for something beautiful to be reduced? Because I think that might be perhaps an element of sin, or even a better idea or a better construct by which to explore sin. The idea of there are these beautiful ways of doing something, and when we miss the mark, through our actions, through our decisions, our choices, we are really missing the opportunity to fully engage in something. And so I have been imagining Brahman, God, the essence of life, all of these things that this thing that I probably should not name, because as soon as I name it, it doesn't exist. But at some point, there had to be a sort of reduction so that beings like myself could understand, or at least be driven or motivated to understand things like what is life about? What are we doing here? Answering some of these big questions. And so my suggestion has been that maybe the first sin, the first reduction of something that is beautiful, maybe had to occur through the creation of the worlds. Because certainly on this side of things, as a human being trapped in the space-time continuum, I will never fully understand this idea of God or Brahman or the flow. And yet there's something about this lack of understanding that keeps me searching. It keeps me growing. It keeps me experiencing. And so my suggestion has been that maybe that was the original sin, which is the creation, trying to take something and just reducing it to the extent that it has to exist in a space-time continuum. I've also suggested that Adam and Eve were the first beings and not necessarily the first human beings. And in a sense, that particular sin, so Adam and Eve, as the first beings, are living in a way, they are living above the water. They're not trapped underneath the water. They're living above the water, but they are unaware of the surface of the water and the water below them. And I think part of the eating of the fruit was that their eyes would be open to the reality that there has to be death, that there has to be evil. Their eyes were open to the reality that a serpent had tricked them. Their eyes are open to the reality that if they're not careful, if they're not focused on something, that they will be sucked beneath the surface of the water into that permanent level of unconsciousness. And I've suggested that maybe that is the second sin. And then it's not until we get to the story of Cain and Abel. So the story of Cain and Abel, in my mind, Cain and Abel are the first true human beings, if we are to think of a human being as having human parents. If we were to think of a human being as having all of the experiences of being in the womb, of going through birth, of developing as a toddler, as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. When we look at the whole experience, it seems to me that the first characters in the Bible would be Cain and Abel, that we could truly say, Cain and Abel are the first human beings, at least the first human beings that have had this full experience of being human. So I want to take a little bit of a tangent today, and I want to ask the following question. So if I'm suggesting that the first sin, the first time something was reduced from its incredible scope of beauty, its incredible dynamic, if you will, was when the earth was created, when space and time continuum came into existence. And if I'm to suggest that the second time we had this reduction of sorts was when Adam and Eve chose of their own free will, not being fully human, but chose of their own free will to eat the fruit of the tree, which gave them the knowledge of good and evil, that even though I'm not sure that we can consider that a sin, it may have been a necessity. That's one of the things I continue to chew on. And it's not until, Cain and Abel, the first humans, and the first true human act of sin, which would be murder. So what I want to explore is, to what extent is the Creator responsible for what the Creator has made? And to me, one of the best examples that I could come up with was Oppenheimer. So, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of the movie. It may have had Oppenheimer in it, but anyway. So a scientist comes up with this incredible technology, which is turned into a bomb. And in one scene of the movie, Oppenheimer quotes from the Bhagavad Gita. He quotes, I have it written here, from the Bhagavad Gita, he quotes, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." So Oppenheimer came up with this technology that when it is put into motion and given a trajectory of giving people power and energy, it can be quite positive. And yet it was also used in a way to put into motion and given a trajectory to kill thousands and thousands and thousands of people by dropping the bomb, by dropping the atom bomb. And so the question is, to what extent is Oppenheimer responsible for the use of his invention? Should he be awarded and lauded for all of the energy we get from his discovery with his work on atomic energy? Should he be condemned that his creation was used in a very negative way to destroy life? Should we look at everything not so simply, but maybe in a way have a discussion about this thing that Oppenheimer created, the atomic weapon? It was used, and it was used to kill people, but then the argument, of course, is made, but if it wasn't used, how many more people would have been killed? So it's not as simple, again, as just categorizing something. We do have to look at the motion and the trajectory. And yet I think the question remains, to what extent is the Creator responsible for the creation? Particularly when we have concepts of, and this is one of my, I don't know, I can't say it's one of my favorite teachings, but it's one of the teachings I think that have challenged me the most. The teaching that God is omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient. He is all-knowing, and omnipresent, which means he's everywhere. And this is really quite challenging, because I get what people are saying when they say God is all three things. But then we also have to accept that when God, according to the story, created Adam and Eve, God must have known full well that they were going to eat of the fruit. God must have known full well that his creation was going to be perhaps necessarily trapped in the space-time continuum. God must have known that that Cain was going to kill Abel. And yet, we believe that he was present. We believe that he was all-powerful, had the ability to stop it. We believe he even had the knowledge that it was going to happen, and yet does nothing. And that's another challenge that I have. So thinking in terms of, can we believe these things? Keeping in mind that when I say these things, when I say For example, when a child is abused, by a religious leader, horrible, horrible events that have happened, and I know continue to happen. What does it say of an individual who knows it's going to happen, who has the power to stop it, and is actually there? What does it say of an individual that doesn't take advantage of something to stop it? And keep in mind that this is not, I'm not questioning the God. I'm questioning my concept of God. I'm questioning the concept of God that I was raised with. And anyway, that's probably where we need to stop right now. But tomorrow, let's start looking at Cain and Abel a little more closely and see what we get from there. All right. Namaste, my friends.